The Who's today were on at Randwick, and we we got some. Well, we had rain, of course, um, uh, uh, during the morning, and well, yesterday afternoon the track was it was a heavy track. We had, as I say, rain this morning, and when we got to the track this morning, it was given out a heavy 8 and downgraded um, after well, how many races was it? After we had a good shower, a really good solid shower before race 6. After it stopped during race. After what am I trying to say here? Before race 5, there was race 5, a nice heavy shower and rain during that race, race 5. The rain had stopped before race 6, but the track had now become, the side said, a heavy 10. Now, we'll get to the meeting today in a minute. Just very quickly, going back to the provincial meeting last Saturday at Kembla Grange. The track was downgraded from a good 3 to a dead 4. The rail was 9 metres out. There was no wind, but there was, as I say, only one leader to win, but that was in race 3. The 4 to 1 chance, Lanero, did draw barrier 12, noticeably coming to the turn, ridden by Jay Ford. He was a good 3, maybe 4 horses off the fence and stayed wide in the straight. If you stayed on the fence in the straight and on the turn, you were in a bit of trouble. So it was best to avoid the fence on the turn and in the straight. Last Saturday at the provincial meeting at Kembla, we got to Canterbury on Wednesday, and on Wednesday at Canterbury, again the fence was well, for a start the track was a heavy 8. I didn't think it was that bad a track. I thought it was very gluey, and the grass, as I keep on saying now at Canterbury, isn't as long as it was when we had the warmer weather. The rail was 6 metres out, and it was maybe a little bit suspect to be staying near the fence. If you stayed near the fence, your chances were a little bit limited, and that's not the word, but they were your chances weren't as good as if you were just off the pace and coming wide in the straight. The last race came along, of course, Countryman, the winner, it drew barrier 1 and ridden by Winona Constant. I stood this runner. It started with a $3.80 favourite, about 11 to 4 chance, after we gave $4.20, and she was lucky enough to find Kanjistar, ridden by Lester Grace, crossing and going to the fence down the back straight after 1.5 furlongs, and then she was able to get off that runner's heels and be off the fence, which was the saving grace for that horse. Not that it didn't fight on well, but I think if it would have been trapped on the fence where I thought it would be, it was going to have a harder task, but it was able to be off the fence, and if you stayed close to it, your chances weren't as good if you were able to come down the outside. We got to Hawkesbury on Thursday. This was the Rowley Mile meeting, and God, it was a pitiful meeting. There were very, very few grumble and grunters in the betting ring. There was a pro who I see quite often in the at all the city meetings. He hadn't been to Hawkesbury for 8 years, and he said, "Gee whiz," he said, "how do you blokes put up with this?" He said, "This is a fair dinkum joke." Most of the races, there was simply, besides the 3 or 4 other pros that were there betting with us, there was hardly a grumble and grunter in the betting ring at all. And as I said in their last meeting, we had the duff complaining to all of the punters out there in Fairyland listening on the radio and that wonderful Sky channel saying, "Oh, these captains, they're betting 130 odd percent." Well, as I pointed out last time, that was on the screen. The first race at Hawkesbury this Thursday, he didn't say, all you poor punters who are out there taking the 17% off the filthy cancer of racing and betting with the corporates, the bookies up here, he didn't tell you this, he didn't say the bookies up here only gave 90% in the first race. Were playing to an empty house and gave 90 in the first race. Nobody said, what are you absolute fools doing with your punting dollar, not being here at the track? The captains at the track are giving section away. The track on Thursday, we had a very light breeze coming out of the south-east. The track was a slow 7. The rail was in the normal position, and there was no bias. You could lead on the fence and win, and with pace, you could most certainly come from behind. As I have said, at least the last 2 or 3 meetings, or the last 3 meetings, say at Hawkesbury, this track at Hawkesbury, with the extended straight that they have there now, is playing very fair. We got to today's meeting at Randwick, and from the outset today, of course, we had the problems with the computer-based riser having difficulties putting up the scratchings at the prescribed time, and they were coming in dribs and drabs. I suppose there wasn't a lot in it, but by the time the final scratchings came through, it just makes that little bit of extra time where you have to keep on adjusting your markets if you are doing markets. It's not as easy as when you get them straight off, but they finally came through, and we got through the day. The track was downgraded, as I say, from a heavy 8 to a heavy 9, eventually to a heavy 10. We had a light northeasterly blowing all day, which didn't have any effect, but close to the fence wasn't the place to be. The more pace that you were able to get if you were back in the field, the easier it was to run on. We did have a runner in the second race, the visitor from Victoria, Surpass, sit back past midfield on the fence before the turn, getting around the heels of a runner called number 3, Done Nothing Wrong, getting around its heels, and then being slightly held up and switching back to the close to the fence and getting up on the inside and winning. It was the runner that won closest to the fence all day. But as I say, the best posse to be was to come off the pace and finish off down the middle of the track. This first race today, we only gave the neat 100%, and it was won by the Avery, Rock Sturdy, ridden by Horseman Bowman. He sat back in 4th position. They were a little bit strung out in this first race. It led any day will do. It pulled up with very deep, apparently deep, speedy cuts, and the rider bowled Lake Shin, saying it didn't handle the going. It led. On its back was Foreign Prince. and tailing that pair was in the money, and there was a good couple of lengths back to the winner and favourite. We put it up at $2.40 chance, 11 to 8 the field, got out to $2.80, back into about $2.60 at the finish of betting Rock Sturdy, and Bowman rated it very well, got to the centre of the track sort of thing after they topped the rise, and was able to run down the horse that was running second, chasing the leader, Foreign Prince, and beat it by 0.8 of a length. Now, the precedent, I suppose, if that's the word, or where the right place to be was sort of very quickly found out here in this first race, because the third horse, Whisperosa, when they were at the 800 metre mark, it was 2 lengths behind the second last horse, which was Babiro, who finished up running last, beaten 8.1 lengths. And then when they got to the 600, all of a sudden Whisperosa was a good 3 lengths behind it and being very hard ridden. Well, it was going to run at that point a clear last, but then T. Marshall started to give it a few flicks with the cane, and it picked up the bit. It was slightly held up, just a little bit turning for home. It knuckled at the start when the gates opened, but it kept on making up ground all the way down the straight. As I say, after looking like it was going to run a clear last at the 600, and was only beaten 1.3 lengths. I think this was a very clear pointer to where the best section of the track was, and it turned out to be that place down the middle of the track, well, especially away from the fence. We got to the second, and surprisingly, we captains in this second race, it was fat. We got 109%. There were runners that didn't have prices, of course, like number 1, Layback Larry, who went from $6 out to $9, an 8 to 1 chance. Well, there we have 11% straight away that doesn't go into the book, although I must admit I did get something out of it. And it led, because it's trained by Gay and Gay owns the lead, it led with a runner called Mahatma sitting on its outside, and it dropped off and ran last, beaten 32 odd lengths. And this was the race where I said that Surpass stayed close to the fence in the straight after, and was able to get up on the inside of the wet tracker Jojo Girl, trained by Tim Donnelly. Tim Donnelly, of course, was Kingston Town's strapper when Kingston Town went interstate. And the favourite, the other visitor from Melbourne, the trainer brought 2 runners up here, Self Sense and High Aims. Self Sense sat back in 5th position, looking at the 4 leaders who were getting along at a good solid pace. And a lot of people, of course, have said to me, he took off too early. Well, he just ambled up the leaders. They were more or less giving in on the turn. He ambled up, got past them very easily, and after they topped the rise, Self Sense had shot a good 2 lengths clear of the field, with the horse that finished up running second, Jojo Girl, coming out after it. It got the bit of the wobble, Self Sense, hung in under pressure. Jojo Girl got past it, but then up on the inside came the winner, Surpass, and the margins were 0.1 by 0.9 of a length, and it was good 3.7 lengths back to the 4th horse, Pentometer, who came from midfield and plugged into 3rd hole. That was about all you'd say there. The first 3, as it turned out, in the heavy conditions, had plenty on the others. Race 3, here we saw, of course, the race where this unfortunate runner, Liberation, has a tendency to all of a sudden when the pressure is applied, to hang out very badly, as we saw when it lost on protest last start at Rose Hill. But today it did a worse job, unfortunately. Today it did lead, turned for home, well off the fence. The second horse got up on the inside of it. We had about a furlong to go, and all of a sudden Liberation did a left-hand turn, ducking out under pressure, and cannoned into its stablemate. Gay owns the lead. She had two runners. Where were they running? 1, 2. Valentia was on its outside, cannoned into Valentia, who went out onto the favourite, Better Land, who I was most probably going to win the race. Completely put it out of business, and it also put out of business the second favourite, Mersault, who was resuming from a spell, and they were turned sideways. Then it was able to be straightened up, Liberation, and when you see the head-on shot, you'll see how far these, at the finish, again running off, hanging out under pressure, Liberation got on the track, because all of a sudden, as I say, towards the end of the race, again came out and took care of the favourite, and Mersault again. And getting up on the inside were the other two runners. Getting inside of Liberation was the second horse, Panzer Division, and getting a middle split was Scissor Kick. And when they hit the line, it took it seemed a long time for the judge to put up the winning number, and that was Scissor Kick by a very, very slender margin. But as we so they ran 1-2, and as we know, the protest, the protests were the protest fourth against or fifth against third was upheld, and the other protest sixth against third was dismissed. I can't see how that one was dismissed, because those two runners, Betterland and Mersault, were, even though they did get the favours in the run, sitting back on a nice pace, getting out into the middle of the track, were going to, even though they got the right part of the track, as I say, were going to run, I thought, a clear first and second. Although I shouldn't say that, because I suppose if the winner doesn't duck out as bad as it did, even though it cannoned into the others, it's got to stick on very well as well, Liberation. So you've got to use your own judgment. I'm going to watch the race again tomorrow to see how I finish up pricing that race. Race 4, and in that race, race 3, we only gave 96%. It was no good. It was no good. But by the same token, the winner, Scissor Kick, was fairly hard to lay after opening up $5.50, a 9-2 chance. It did get out to 13-2, $7.50 at the end of betting. It was well backed. Mersault, $6, $7.50 was given about was given about Liberation, who only started a 9-2 chance. We put it up a 4-1 chance, $5 Liberation, got out to $7.50, as I say, which you wouldn't see, but only started 9-2. And there was as much as $6 given about Mersault, into $5 at one stage, back into $5.50. The favourite, we put it up $2.80, Better Land, got out to $3.20, back into $3, but back out to $3.20 towards the end of betting. And there was a little bit of money for the bottom two, Panzer Division and Hero I Am, and also Shooting to Win. Every runner in this race was backed, except the top weight Valentia, who went from $15 out to $30. Race 4, we got we got positive figures, which is something. We got 102%. We let you lay the 10-9 on the winner, Bring Me the Maid, who finished up winning the race by a length and a half from the second pick, Memorial. They jumped and it went straight to the lead. Press Report. It wasn't real. It was, well, coming down the side, might have only been 3 off the fence. It did run a clear last, beaten 12.9 lengths. It has to, the vet ran his hand over it, couldn't find anything wrong, and it has to trial before it starts again. Sitting behind it, but then getting to inside it, coming down the side, but then out, getting to its outside when they, by the time they reached the turn, was Alpha Miss, and easing off their heels and coming down, getting to the right section was the horse that ran third, the Visitor from Melbourne, Clover Lane, and then easing off their heels was, well, Nay Ellie, who they said were going to ride with cover today, and they did. It went poorly like it did last start. On its outside was Bring Me the Maid, easing around the heels of the leaders when or getting to the right section of the track, topping the rise, and tailing it up was the second pick, Memorial. For 2 strides, Memorial looked like it was going to race up and maybe even win the race, but then when they got down to the last furlong and a half of the race, the favourite showed Memorial. It was able to sprint a little bit better, and it did, and beat it by a length and a half. And as I say, the outside of the field, the 40-1 chance, Clover Lane, who set up in a handy position all the way. It ran third, beaten 2.8 lengths. Race 5, we only gave 96% here, and this race was won by the favourite, Terra Vista. If you could bet in the run, especially just before they topped the rise, I think it's easy now. The race is over, but watch the replay and then you'll see exactly what I'm saying, because when they topped the rise, it was leading Oakfield Commands off the fence. Trying to get up on its inside was 9th Legion from barrier 2. Looking at the pair was In Cahoots, who finished up running second, and on In Cahoots' back was the favourite, Terra Vista. As they topped the rise, eased off In Cahoots' heels, just ranged up to it in 2 strides. Bowman hadn't even moved. He waited until they just started to flatten out, passing the rise. He said, "Let's go," and he sprinted away and won by 2 lengths. As I say, In Cahoots held on for second, and coming from well back in the midfield was Bull Point, I should say, who was asked to be scratched by its trainer, Chris Waller, saying that we didn't think it was going to handle the conditions. But the Stipes said, well, if you didn't think it was going to handle the conditions, it was a heavy 8 this morning. Why didn't you scratch it then? It's only a heavy 9 now. No, you can't scratch it, and it had to stay in the field. It ran a fair race. Was beaten 2.5 lengths. Ran into third hole. When that announcement was made that the betting had already just gone up with Ball Point, within 2 minutes of that announcement being made, we captains said, well, we'll throw a net out over all of these grumble and grunters who want to back Ball Point, and we were only $6 at the time, maybe even $5.50, and we got it out to $9. And the net I threw out, I caught one of those little tiny toadfish, not worth a drink of water. You couldn't give it away, although if you gave the $9, they did take that off you. It started $8, but we gave only 96. The race was hopeless. The favourite won the race, absolutely trotted in, and it was a bad result for the captains. Race 6, we gave the neat 100 here, and the runner, there were how many runners in this race? There were There were 7 runners in this race, of course. Chris Waller had 4 of the 7 runners. You would have thought he would have trained the winner, but it wasn't the case. Joe Pride, who trained the previous winner, saddled up the runner that came from the outside alley. There were 7 runners. It had barrier 7 Tiger Tees. Looked the obvious leader. It did go to the lead, ridden by Father Schofield. He was able to dictate, and especially in the first part of the race, not go anywhere near the fence. And even when he was coming down the side, he stayed off the fence, and he said to clever Kieran McAvoy, who was aboard Royal Descent, who finished up running second, was on his, and drew barrier 2, was on his inside all of the way, closest to the fence, and finished up closest to the fence when they hit the line, beaten 1.3 lengths. There was only 0.4 of a length between second and fourth when they hit the line. The winner winning by 1.3, and it was 1.7 lengths away to Hawkspur, the $16 chance, running in 5th position. But the way the race was run, and Tiger Tees having the fitness on its side, having the 1 run, resuming from a spell down in Melbourne and winning and beating the runner that won on Thursday and won the Rolly Mile. So I suppose you could get a form line there if you thought it was the right form line, and say, well, that gives Tiger Tees a great chance here. And that turned out to be the case, because he was able to dictate in front, not get along and be pressured, and did duck out a couple of times under a little bit of pressure, but was able to hang on, as I say, and win by 1.3 lengths. That's about all I would say there. The others seem to have their chance, except I suppose Royal Descent, you could say, was in the worst section of the ground. Race 7, we only got 101% here. This was the race won by the runner called Miser Beale, who, as I keep on saying, is a greatly improved runner since cunning Kevin Moses has taken over its training, and it was able to sit in 3rd hole. We all know that it loves the going, and again ridden by Father Schofield, when they topped the rise, was able to quickly get past Thump, who unfortunately most probably has got a few problems, this horse. It finished up, being slightly lame, also with that heart arrhythmia, and it also lost a plate in the run, and it has to trial before it's able to start again. It was beaten 40-odd 2 lengths. It dropped right out. Tailing it was Angel B from an inside alley, barrier 3, and it stuck on fairly well, ran 3rd, beaten 4.8 lengths, and looking at that pair, as I say, was the winner off the rail in a lovely position. Got past those 2 leaders quickly, and the race was all over after they had topped the rise. Before, when they were at the 600-metre mark, it was in 4th position, the rank outsider, the $91 chance, Such a Princess. And then we had a bit of another bit of a break to Ultimate Moment, who drew barrier 1, not the place to be. Vendetta on its outside. Diamond Drill, who drew barrier 2, also close to the fence, not the place to be. On its outside was Gold Epona, and Christy Lee was back last on the fence, and on its outside, the favourite Gypsy Diamond. And Bold Blake Shin, when asked by the Stipes how come he went so poorly, he said, I was never ever travelling. The vet said there was nothing wrong with it, and Peter Snowden, who trains Gypsy Diamond now, said that he was quite satisfied with the run because he had to come through not real close to the fence, but not in the best part of the track. It did make up some ground. It was resuming from a spell, and it will be improved. The way the race was run and where the winner was placed, and you knew it was always going to be near the lead, My Sabile, where it sat second last time at Rose Hill. It's been racing up close to the lead. It was always going to be have a good chance in this race, and was extremely well backed. Plenty of $12 given, plenty of $11 given. As they jumped, the starter said jumped. Starter said they're racing. Some good fella working for one of the captains on the rails yelled out to me, "Number 13 to win 3." I said, "Most certainly." And they took the $10 off me as just as they jumped, if not after they jumped. So there were 3 G's that jumped out of the satchel. I thought I was a little bit stiff to get that very late bet, but that's what happens in this game. Now, race 8 came along, the last, and again Joe Pride got the winner here. He got the Quinella, in fact. Both of these runners got out in the market. I'm talking about Green Beret and Diamond Oasis. Well, of course, Diamond Oasis drew barrier 1. And all the grumble and grunters. And the captain said, well, Horseman Bowman is going to have to be at his very, very best to extricate Diamond Oasis from that barrier. But he didn't really have to extricate it from that barrier, because when they jumped, Green Beret went straight to the front, ridden by Jovial Josh Parr. On its outside, we had the very, very well-backed Average. Now, just going back to the second last race, yes, I told you we had 101. In this last race, we only gave 96%. I'll give you the flux in this last race. Sitting on outside Green Beret was Average, very well back from $10 given early in betting, only started $6.50, so it was 9s to 11 to 2. On its outside, now it wasn't, now who was it? I think, yes, it was Turbo, number 5, and then trapped 3 wide, but the right part of the track to be in, but by the same token, they were running along and trapped, and out 4 wide, outside those 3 was the Visitor from Melbourne, ridden by Brodie Loy. It's Poet's Day. We had those 4 in line, tailing them, but as they got to the turn, all of a sudden you could see, or even coming down the side when you saw the side shot, that Green Beret, even though leading and did have an inside alley, barrier 3? Barrier 2 it drew, but he was a good 5 horses off the fence. Jovial Josh Parr, he wasn't going to fall for that. He knew you couldn't stay near the 18 pence and win. So when they got to the turn, all of a sudden, here's Green Beret leading, but he's a good, as I say, 5, call it 6 or 7 if you want, horses off the fence. Now, behind that line of 4 was the Avery Mount Nebo, and he ridden by T. Marshall. He went to, he went to go for a split in between the 2 leaders, but he went back to the inside as it turned out towards the finish. He ran 3rd beaten 1.6 and ran an honest race. But then the runner ridden by Horseman Bowman and drawing barrier 1, Diamond Oasis, who we put up the $4.60 second pick. We put it up 5 to 2 favourite Mount Nebo. We put the winner up $4.60 second pick, 7 to 2 bar. Now, I was $8 when they jumped, Muggins here. Plenty of $7.50 given. And Horseman Bowman, when they were coming down the side and the leaders were getting off, he said, yes, I'm going to do the same thing, being the very smart and clever rider he is. And he didn't even bother trying to, there was a mile of room to get inside Mount Nebo. He said, no, I'm not falling for the three-card trick there. And he went around Mount Nebo, and then when Mount Nebo didn't have enough acceleration to go through the split in between the leaders, all of a sudden getting past Mount Nebo on its outside was the winner, and he had better acceleration, and he got in between Green Beret and the weakening Average. And when they got down to the line, Bowman throwing the reins at Diamond Oasis, who was resuming today, as I say, and now trained by Joseph Pride and had been gelded, and the tongue tie was taken off, was able to ride on the line and nudge out Green Beret. Green Beret was a lot better result for me than the winner. Even though it went from 7-2 to 7's the winner, I laid it all the way out to that price and paid the penalty. These were the flux in the last race. Green Beret went from $8 out to $12, I saw, back into $11. Mount Nebo, $3.50 out to $4.20, back into $3.80, back out to $4, back into $3.80. Too Much Talk went from 80 out to 100. Straturbo, 26 out to 41. Wouldn't it be nice? $8 out to $11 at the finish of betting. You wouldn't see that. I couldn't give it away at $11 at the finish of betting and on the fence. Diamond Oasis, as I say, $4.60 out to $8. And the next one was supposed Queenian was 31 into 26. Ike's Legacy, Ike's Legacy was $10 out to 14, back into 12. Mio Dio, the runner from trained in Victoria, it was 13 out to 16 or 15, back into 14. Miss Alibi, $12 into $11. Average, as I said, $10 given early into $6.50. And the other visitor, It's Poet's Day, who sat 4 wide outside the leaders, finish up running second last. It was $21 into $17. Only about 96% in the last race. I told you how the winner won. That was about the meeting. With a bit of wet weather around, we've got my next meeting is until next Wednesday, but we've got a stack of meetings in between there we've got to look at. If you were grumble and grunting today, I hope you finished on the right side of the ledger. Good evening.